Okay, Andreas Kali, very, very welcome to Shamrocks and Shanks. Thank you so much for coming on here live from the car in Denmark on a very, very chilly Denmark. We're kind of having a little competition, see where's colder today, Toronto or Denmark. I think I won a little bit by that one. But really, really appreciate you coming on, mate. Thank you so, so much for making the time.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I like talking golf.
Yeah, I think who doesn't when they're really, really interested in the swing. So, for those who maybe aren't overly familiar with you, you're one of the most kind of, let's say, popular coaches coming up in terms of what you do. Like, and I'm not talking social media in terms of likes, follows. I'm talking about the swings you produce and how you work with your players. So, amongst coaches, you're very popular in that respect and very respected in that respect. For those who don't know you, you're head of the Danish Junior Golf Academy, and this is sometimes okay. Somebody puts out a title, but you've moved over 145 players under your guidance to the national panel, which is an amazing number. British amateur champion with Jakob Skov Olesen. I hope that's pronounced right. If it isn't, I apologize.
Good.
And he's actually now moved on to the DP World Tour, so that's a great move up. And Rasmus Niergaard Pedersen or Peterson, close enough.
Peterson.
Peterson. Okay, we'll do. Who also plays DP and is also, I believe, playing a few PGA Tour events in this coming up season too. So, you kind of cover from really developing those junior golfers all the way up to, let's say, the highest platform in golf. So that's really what you do, and that's what you're an expert at doing. So great to have you on the podcast, and we're going to jump straight in here to a little bit of club golfer stuff, right? So how can we help our
Yes.
club golfers out there? I always start with this one. What's one of the most common misconceptions you encounter with your players? And this can be across the board. It doesn't necessarily have to be a club golfer. It can be juniors coming in or, even very elite experienced players. What's one of those things that keeps coming up where you go, you know what, actually, that's not quite right in terms of how you understand that?
I would say in general, poor concepts.
Okay.
Simply a poor understanding of what causes the ball to do what it's doing, and what they should do to remove whatever they want to get rid of, which in terms of ball flight. I think there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of guys. The reason why they're hitting a crap shot is actually when they're doing what they're trying to do. I think there's, especially actually still when it comes to ball flight. I think with launch monitors and everything, I think we're pretty good on knowing that the ball starts on the face and curves away from the path. But I still think that there's a lot of people that, if they really deep down understood it, they wouldn't move the way they move the club through the golf ball.
Yeah, I think there's a lot there in terms of the idea, okay, what's probably the most, let's say, relevant piece of data or information we could give a golfer is what you talked about, those ball flight laws. So, what really affects where the ball starts and how it curves. So, nearly the idea maybe starting off every lesson with just that, like maybe even a little
Yes.
handout at the start of every lesson. So, we can start educating golfers to be on our side, really.
But what I mean is that I think I would say that all the players I coach, if the ball flight loss was like a written exam, I
Hmm.
think they would all pass and they would all get A pluses. But there's still some that when they hit a ball that starts kind of straight and goes left, um, they actually begin to slowly and steadily either aim themselves more to the right or aim their swing more to the right to avoid left, where you're
Hmm.
going, okay, so you know the answer, but you clearly don't understand it because that ball that started straight and went left, you should have opened the face to the path. You shouldn't have moved the path further to the right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's the understanding and then the application of the understanding.
Yeah,
Knowing
yeah, yeah,
something
yeah,
is not enough in
yeah.
itself. Yeah,
No, exactly. Knowing is like, well, I mean, it's a good start, but like, how do you actually act upon that information, right? What do you
yeah, for
do
sure.
with that information, or do you just turn on the autopilot and just do what you always have done? Because then you're
Hmm.
probably going to get what you always get, right?
Yeah, I think going back a little bit to what you said at the start there too is a really interesting paradox. Is sometimes what the player, and I know you've probably experienced this in a lesson where a player comes in has a certain pattern. You go, okay, well, what are you attempting to do here? What are you trying to solve with this swing? And they'll go, well, I'm working on this, and you'll go, well, actually, that's the issue. We don't actually
Yes.
need to do that. So, as you said, sometimes the cure is the poison. A lot of the times, and what a lot of players are doing. So, as you said, being aware maybe of those ball flight laws, maybe what affects ball flight, and then even on your own, attempting the process of trying to link these things together, cause and effect, even starting on that process, that journey. You don't have to have the answers, But I can tell you as a coach, and I'm sure you're similar, if a player comes along and goes, I know the ball starts here, I know the path is influencing that, I know it's probably this, but I'm not sure. Can we look at that?
Mm.
That's a great. I get excited when a student comes in and says that stuff. I'm like, okay, you're in. I love this stuff. You're invested.
That's the goal, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So just for those club golfers, maybe misconceptions is kind of the misconception is misconception. So perhaps let's all start with a little ball flight laws. If you're not familiar with them, Google them. Let's get into that a little bit, be aware of them, and then try to start applying them yourself a little bit in your own practice sessions or even with a golf coach. And that can really enhance your education. And I always say to players, if you understand, your mind is now working on my side. It's smart, it's going to do its best. But if you're feeding it rubbish, it's probably going to give you back that same thing. So, really, really interesting. You and your players deal with a very similar environment to what we have here in Canada in the winter. I think for us here, it's about 5 months indoors. For you in Denmark, it's probably six, similar-ish,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah,
Yeah, okay, in
ish.
around the same number. What are some of the guidelines you implement for player practice with indoor environments versus the outdoor?
Um, well, again, it depends on the player and how much time they put in, right? If they're
Hmm.
ambitious, doesn't matter what age. If we go indoors, we probably do that like mid-October.
Okay.
Um, Mid-October would then be the furthest we can possibly get from actually playing golf.
Hmm.
That would likely mean that if it's an ambitious player, let's just say it's a 12-year-old player who wants to get good at golf, we're likely spending at least, we're not only doing it, but we're at least spending a month and a half looking ourselves in the like into mirrors. We're looking at ourselves, trying to move better. I think long term, I think that's important.
Okay.
Also, full well know that you probably can't get much further away from playing golf. But I would say that if you can't move yourself around in the mirror and you can't send the signals to your pelvis or to your hips or to your shoulders or to your chest from your brain, then you're likely going to have a hard time doing it when you're swinging a golf club as well, right?
Hmm.
So I would say we spend quite a bit of time doing that. I think we try to not waste our time. So, meaning indoors, what can we do? Can we play golf? Yeah, we can play some simulated golf, but I mean, is that really golf? It's kind of ish, but it's not really golf. However, there's a lot of good things to do as like a baseline, right? So you kind of have, just like you have your putting mat that you take outside, you can almost use the indoor facility like that. There's no distractions, there's no nothing. I can work on my swing, I can work on my yardages, I can work on my direction, I can do different things where I can get really, really good at that. So
Hmm.
I know that off a mat into a net, when I hit the ball this hard with whatever club or with different swings with my wedges, the ball should go this far.
Hmm.
Now, it's never really going to go that far when you go outside on grass because there's temperature change, there's elevation, there's wind, there's grass types, there's all these things. But at least you have a fairly rigid starting point that you know that off a mat, 18 degrees Celsius, 50 height meters, the ball goes this far. So it's like controlled, right?
Yeah.
And I think you can, like, I think we spend quite a bit of time doing that as well.
Okay. When it goes into, let's say, wedges, so we want to control yardages as best we can throughout the bag, but when we go into wedges where it's maybe a little bit more specific, a little bit more scoring, do you apply a truth to the numbers you're getting indoors similar to the longer stuff? Or because we know there can be maybe a little contact before the mat, ball bounces up a little bit, we might get more or kind of less spin in terms of what happens. So
Yeah.
are you using that time and go, okay, well, let's work on that 85-yard shot and we're getting really good at it indoors, and then when we go outdoors we have that, let's say, pattern, and then we just adjust it like we would go into a different elevation on a golf course?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so something more like that. Okay.
Yeah, I would say we usually like if we have I live what 10 15 minutes 10 minutes away from TrackMan headquarters, so we have quite a few TrackMans. We will very often we'll have like almost two phones or a phone and an iPad running on one TrackMan, and we'll have one that tells us what the ball's actually doing, and one that's normalized to again probably 18 degrees Celsius, 50 height meters.
Oh, okay.
So we know what it should do, and then we can see what it actually did.
Right.
Right? So we can
Fantastic.
learn, oh crap, like it's hurting a lot more than it feels like, right?
Mhm. Do you find it challenging when you put players in those environments that we have? So let's say we're outdoors, we're on a range outdoors, we're given a lesson. we have certain amounts of feedback. So let's strip away the video and the launch monitor for a second. We say we have, okay, club into ground, ball on club, and then ball flight. So we
Yeah.
have three. Well, the player has three, let's say, access to three as a natural. When we move indoors, we don't really have ball flight. We have ball guided flight, let's say, on a screen,
Yes.
but we have a lot of data, a lot of numbers pop up on those screens, right? Whatever system you're
Yeah.
using.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself having to maybe at the start where we talk about introducing a player to those kind of learning environments? Okay, well, you're going to get five, six different types of feedback here, including trackman video, etc. Even my guidance as a coach. When you're working on this, this is the feedback. When you're working on this is the feedback. And
Yeah.
do you find yourself kind of making sure the players don't, because it's very easy to kind of like get distracted by all the
Uh,
numbers, right?
I've got some because we have a lot of standard bull flight numbers just sitting there at the bottom. I
Mm-hmm.
try to usually like put the ones all the way over to the right that the player needs to pay attention to. But I'll get guys who hit a shot and then they look at the three numbers, and then you can see they just keep looking like across to find some number that's wrong,
Yeah.
right? And then of course we have to have a conversation about it. I know there's guys who are actually John Ortega out in California has like an indoor place. He just only has the ball flight on the screen, and then he's
Mm-hmm.
got all the numbers on a little separate he's got it on the projector screen, and then he's got numbers separately on a TV screen, so the player doesn't really see the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you could do that. I'm just not. I don't know if I'm. I think I'd like to think I'm smart enough to install it that way, but it's just how it's been. I usually have like two or three things that people can look at over on the right, right? So if it's wedges, they're probably looking at club speed, smash and launch
Yeah. Okay.
as a starting point. We'll likely add spin and carry just because all these things kind of go together.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's like full swing, regular golf lessons, they usually have face to pass, swing direction, low point, distance.
Yeah.
That's the only three numbers they get.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's kind of controlling the information that they're getting from all these great
Oh, for
kind of
sure.
feedback. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. There's
absolutely.
no point in putting the swing plane on there or like something like that. It's
And so
causes more havoc than good.
for you, when you're kind of marking progress throughout that 6 month indoor period, you mentioned kind of playing. There's no like the progress wouldn't be so much based on the playing side of things, like your scores, so to speak. It would be more on the data parameters and improving, let's say, the efficiency of the data point first, and then the variability of it, perhaps.
Yeah, kind of. We try to be functional with some things. I'm fortunate that where we work indoors, it's not like it's actually a training facility. It's not like a simulator place.
Okay. Yeah.
So we actually have a putting green and a chipping green like next to where the sim's at, right? So we
Hmm.
can actually play games where you hit into the screen, pass a certain number, have to walk over, hit a putt. If you don't pass a certain number, you have to hit a chip shot, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we can get pretty creative where it can be at least, it's not, again, it's not going to be real golf, but at least we can divide the golf into like the types of sets
Yeah.
that you're playing golf in.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So
And
it's an approach
creating.
shot and
Yeah.
then a putt
Hmm.
or something like that.
Yeah, I like that, creating a little kind of nuance for the mind too, that it's not just kind of doing the same thing, because they'll get used to it, right? And when we're playing golf or when we're hitting golf shots on a range, maybe we have a little bit more break than we do indoors, just because the ball is so readily available and it's kind of like more in the same kind
Yeah.
of environment, the same kind of, yeah, changes the process a little bit. So when we're talking about the swings in general, and we'll get more into your coaching development in the second half of the program, but just again talking about those club golfers, if they get inundated with information, right? So, oh, what nobody's telling you, this is the next thing to do, and this is what every
Yeah.
pro does to make their swing great. What are some, coming from a very elite coach, what are some of the non-negotiable principles you believe must exist in every club golfer to play functional golf? And then would that answer change if we applied it to a high level or elite player?
Um, no, I think that would be the same if I'm being
Okay.
honest. I think there's really not that many absolutes, right?
Hmm.
Like in golf, like
Yeah.
you'll almost always find like a tour player who doesn't do what you said they should do, right? Um, but what I will say is, if you go down to like, if we start with the ball,
Hmm.
the better you are at controlling where the club hits the ground or where the club bottoms out, let's just say that,
Yeah.
the better you likely are at golf. Meaning that if you can control the depth, of the low point. You can control the well, I guess vertically both towards you and away from you, but also towards and away from the target.
Hmm.
The better you are at that, you're likely better at golf than the people that are worse at that, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Driver, you likely want to bottom out behind the ball, but not bottom out below the ground. With a whatever 9 iron, you probably want to bottom out in front of the golf ball, but also quite a bit below the ground, et
Hmm.
cetera, et cetera. So I would say that's like a non-negotiable. There's nobody who's any good at golf who can't control where the club hits the ground. Now, the
Hmm.
guys that are world class control it like really well. But if you look at it as like a dispersion pattern, the guys who are pretty good at golf control it better than the people who can't play golf.
Yeah.
Right. So I would say that's number one.
Okay.
Um, then you would say that you would have to at least be able to create some sort of speed. You
Hmm.
can't just chip, even though that would probably be the best way to control where the club hits the ground.
Yeah.
So you got to hit it far enough. What's far enough? I mean, you would want people to get to a point where they can reach holes in regulation. Now, if it's a
Yes.
75-year-old lady, she probably needs to move a couple tees forward to help herself out. But I mean, whether that is through how they move or through club fitting or whatever.
Hmm.
And I would say again, I would say the best players in the world, they also can hit all the greens in regulation, right?
Yeah.
There's like a
It helps.
minimum. You can even there's a ball speed number on the PGA Tour. You can take the guy who's the lowest, and you can go, okay, that's probably the slowest you can hit a ball.
Yeah.
And then finally, there's some sort of direction, right? Which is, I guess, the never-ending chase for everybody.
Hmm.
Every week on tour, the guy who controls direction the best is likely going to be. He's got a chance at winning unless he's not putting well. I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
So I would say like those three, I would say would be fairly absolute.
Okay. Low
Strike
point,
distance,
speed,
direction.
direction. Okay.
Yeah,
Excellent.
yeah.
Yeah.
Then I would say the last two that I don't think I don't know. Maybe you can come up with some, but I don't think there's anybody ever who's good at golf who doesn't side bend in the opposite direction of their turn.
Hmm.
So if they're turning to the right, they're side bending left, and if they're turning to the left, they're side bending to the right. That's what good players do. Now,
Yeah.
the amount they turn or the amount they side bend might be different, but nobody who's good at golf turns right and side bends right.
Hmm.
Even though you might see a couple of drills on socials where people are turning left and side bending left at the same time. And you might see Alex Noren really try to do it when he does his drills. It's not what he does.
Yeah.
And then, so here's the interesting one, right? So one of my mentors is a guy named John Sinclair. And John has like the largest 3D database of PGA Tour players. Hell, it might TPI might have a bigger one, but John's got a big one. And the only thing he told me that's absolute in his database is that everybody he's captured so far moves their pelvis linearly towards the target before they turn it towards the target.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Um, I'm a little bit. I walked 27 holes last week with David Pooch,
Hmm.
and the first thing I did was I wrote John, and I was like, John, do you have David? Like, do you have his 3D capture? Because he might be the one that
We might have an
unwinds it.
outlier.
He might. He probably doesn't, but
Yeah.
he's got to be freaking close. I've never seen anything like that before. But so I would say those would probably be. I mean, you can you do all these things too much? Yes, you can, but everybody
Hmm.
does it.
Yeah.
Do you have any?
It's really interesting you mentioned John because I was going to go into that because I got the chance to go out and I contacted John last year to go out and spend some time with him. So I went out to Texas, spent the day with him, and we had that conversation. So I was showing him like my player captures on the 3D system I use, and he was showing me his. And we were talking about that, and he was like, I used to have a list of eight, Steve. And then every time a player would come in, strike it, strike it, strike it. And then he said I think the two he said were the lateral first and then the rotational. So he had the lateral of the pelvis and the pelvis would start to rotate before the thorax in transition. And he goes, and they're holding strong right now, but maybe someone comes in and changes that. So it was a
Yeah.
really, really interesting conversation around that. As you said, he has the largest database of, I think maybe TPI, as you said, are close.
Yeah.
But he's very, if you ever get time to spend with John, you would know him very well, much better than I do. He's a very honest and genuine person. He
Oh,
doesn't
no
like, so
agenda. Just
there's
a
no
legend.
agenda.
Yeah.
That's what I saw. And he got challenged on the wedge thing a couple of years ago. He's like, I'm not doing it again because now it would be skewed, right? I did it in the very genuine way. So to me, I would always kind of default when I'm talking to club golfers is what's the one thing you can get really good at? Well, let's work on getting the ball out of the middle of the face. So let's work on
Yeah.
strike. But again, like you said, that's very much influenced by low point vertically and horizontally. So you've kind of hit that nail on the head. And then going into when you're looking at those junior players, it is developing speed, right? We like it or loathe it, whichever way you want to look at it. You look at the order of merits, you look at the money list, you look at the players that are doing well on tour. There's it's not like you have to go out of your shoes, but there is a benchmark now. There's a level where it gets very difficult to make a living if you are not hitting it this far. And likewise, if you want to improve your playing as a handicap player, you probably need to add a little bit more distance. For the most part, you get players that are a little bit outliers like that. So
Yeah.
for me, the really interesting one when I get into this conversation that I go back and forward on is grip. And so I get a little bit pedantic when people go, grip is not a fundamental. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And they go, well, it's not a fundamental. Like, well, you have to put your hands on the club, otherwise it doesn't move. So in my mind, that's how I would describe a fundamental. Does it have to be the same way? No, you can do all sorts of variances, but understanding that it has a massive influence. So how I put my hands on
Yeah, but
affects
that
forearm and so
but that
forth.
does define it as a variable, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a variable, 100%. But it's a variable, but has a constant influence. So that would be kind of
Yeah,
like where I kind of,
yeah.
and we kind of get into the
But
weeds and talk about
but
this.
I'm not saying it's not important. All right,
Yeah, yeah,
like I'm not disagreeing. I'm just
yeah.
saying that I mean, when was that? I forgot what event it was. It was in Germany once where Alex and Matt
Mm.
Fitzpatrick were standing right behind each other hitting balls. And I was like, hell, I was almost considering taking two pictures and go, well, there's your right hand grip spectrum, because there's like the way they place their right hand on the club is
Yeah.
almost 180-degree difference.
Mm. And I think one of the contexts I look at and, you know, is if I get a player in front of me and they're really good, right? So say mini tour, professional, and their grip is a little idiosyncratic, maybe something that you wouldn't maybe teach to a beginner if you're starting off, but they hit it really good. I just leave it the fuck alone. I'm not changing it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the only real reason to change these things, and that's where sometimes when players are when people put, oh well, Blades Brown last week drew a lot of attention in terms of what he does, his pattern. Had this discussion on Instagram with a different coach where you know I was like, well, JP has done a fantastic job with Blades managing his talent and ability, while you behind the scenes you don't know what they're doing. And then
Nope.
this was retorted to, well, they're doing nothing because he's still doing this. I'm like, okay, well, so I think it's a contextualized question when you look at all this stuff and you go down the rabbit hole. I think the number one thing is going to be, as you said, question really went back to non-negotiables, and that's what we have to hold
Yeah.
true to. So as you said,
Yes.
those non-negotiables would be, well, you have to
But
do this. There is no
but I would
choice.
agree.
Grip,
You would have
yeah,
to you have to hold on to the club.
yeah. Depends how mad you get. Yeah.
I'm with you. You have to hold on, or else it's not.
unless
It's
you're
not
unless
going.
you're Rory at Bay Hill, like, and trying to do some like
Yeah.
motor
Yeah.
pattern.
You're right. You're right.
So many of our club golfers, and I noticed before you've done a little bit 3D, you've got the Paul Hema system in there. I'm not too sure who you use, but I've seen you kind of learn through that and have that as a guidance for your players, help for your players. Many of our club golfers would be of a slightly higher age. So
Yes.
when looking at possible, let's say, physical restrictions, what might limit movement, etc. What do you think is the biggest issue that causes issues in the golf swing in terms of that, right? Are we talking wrists? Are we talking ability to rotate and hips, etc.? And I know it's a hard question because it is, again, contextualized by who's in front of you. But from your
Yeah.
experience, let's say, where's the biggest issue that causes problems in the swing downstream?
Um, it seems to me that hips and shoulders just keep getting stiffer and stiffer and less mobile the older people get, unless they take good care of themselves, right?
Yeah.
Um, which are, I would say, they're pretty important. I guess there's something in like the thoracic spine and stuff, but
Hmm.
really, I don't think it's that bad. Like if when I think of it, but usually people start to lose internal rotation of their hips. They start to lose external rotation of their shoulders,
Yeah.
which means that it doesn't mean that all of a sudden they can't play golf. It just means that we have to have a little bit more leeway on some things, right? We probably have to look at probably have to look at stance lines. We probably have to look at foot flares. We probably have to look a little bit at pelvic turn, we like these different things where we'll likely have to compensate. We'll probably have to look a little bit more at neck tilts. We'll have to borrow some things somewhere else because these joints are not getting more mobile.
Hmm. Do you think that there's a lack of perhaps, or maybe more of an understanding of that side of the anatomy is needed from the coaching area where we can understand, okay, when we see a player move like that, let's say we discover that there is limitations in internally rotating their trail hip, that we have more tools to deal with that. Like, not that we're physios, we're going to like
No, no,
massage their hip or anything like that, but like what
no,
you were
no.
suggesting.
Yeah, I think it's good to know some safe workarounds.
Yes.
Because again, right? Let's say you get a older gentleman or older gentleman's coming in Canada. They probably played ice hockey.
Mm.
They usually have the most horrendous internal rotation of the hips I've ever seen in my life. Right? Like never seen anything like it. Okay, I mean, if they just are casual golfers who play, let's say they play once a week, maybe they play twice, then they play quite a bit of golf.
Yeah.
Um, if they get to practice, if you can get them to practice 1 hour a week total, you're doing good. And they came to you because they wanted to get better at golf. Um, I think it would be unethical to then send them to a physical therapist or give them like 3 hours in the gym a week and all kinds of stuff to get better at golf. Now, I'm not
Mm.
saying going to the gym is bad because it's for sure good and it's healthy for you and you lose muscle, lose mobility, people start shrinking, all these things. But that's not why they came,
Yeah.
right? They came to hit the ball better. They're sick of slicing it. Okay, we probably need some more depth. We probably, in the backswing, we probably need some more hip rotation. And you know what? You can't internally rotate your hips. You know what? Let's turn your right foot out. Let's pull it back a little bit. Let's do some things where we can actually like get the club where it needs to go. And it
Hmm.
might not be like 10 out of 10 technique, but we're changing path, we're changing low point, we're changing things, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So really important to look at that aspect. As you said, it's it's very rare that you're going to suggest go to a PT because again, that's not what they came for. They came for a golf lesson, hit it better. I did a lot of breathing courses about 3 years ago, and they were fantastic, really, really great.
Yes.
Learned a
Yeah.
ton, very educational. And then people were asking me, well, why don't you do more? And I'm like, well, I'm not going to start a lesson with, okay, so let's work on your deep performance breath first before we hit a golf shot. I'd be out of business pretty sharply if that's all they did for players. So you can have the knowledge of all these things, but you have to make them applicable to that player in front of you, as you said. So move them around and know what that changes, right? So when you
Yeah.
do create that foot flare and that trail foot, perhaps then you get, I said that I always say this to players, it's like filtered water. Filters water, great. Takes out the bad stuff. Takes out some of the good stuff too. So when you do make these little adaptations, where's the
Yeah.
price
Yeah.
that you're paying a little bit later on in the swing that you might just have to make that all work? So yeah, no, I
Okay.
think yeah, like you, I'd agree. It's probably going to be in the hips, probably going to be in the trail shoulder because that goes through such a higher range of motion in the golf swing. So it's going to have more of an impact, let's say. So those areas, I think, and then going back to what you said at the very start, the beliefs, right? So
Yeah.
I'm sure you've got the player in and goes, yeah, I'm not very flexible. I can't really
Yeah.
turn. And you go,
Yeah.
well, if you just stand there and put your hands on the wall behind you, oh, look, you moved really well.
Yes. Yeah. So again, right, there's some of it, and again, it could be like, I mean, some of it is just pure, just poor coordination, right? It's not a matter
Hmm.
of like, because I don't think, to be honest, like I throw up a bunch of swings on Instagram and the boys and girls move really nicely. I would say they're all within regular range of motion. Like it's not
Mm.
like they have to be freaks to be able to do what I'm telling them to do.
Yeah, I think that's very, very true, right? And yeah, like I think beliefs kind of influence what you. So I think a lot of golfers don't move because they're afraid of moving.
Yeah.
They don't want to get further away from the ball. So if I hang out here and just do this,
Yeah.
that like at least I'm
Yeah, I
moving
can
further away
still
from it.
kind of see what's going on out of the
Mm.
side of my eye, right? That thing's
Yeah,
behind my head. Like I don't know where in the world it is.
yeah. Okay, so really, really good. So kind of moving nicely along, we're going to go into the coaching section. We're going to talk about your influences and one of those influences in a nice combined way would have been kind of stack and tilt and something with that grid maybe that would be applicable to what we just talked about. So I'll let you kind of go through just for like the other coaches listening to this, what have been some of your biggest influences and what have you really learned from them that's really helped you in your career today?
Um, let's do them in order.
Okay, perfect.
So I became an apprentice 15 years ago under a Danish coach named Anders Danielsen. He is now the Danish girls national team coach. He's my closest colleague that I have. They won the Euros a couple of years ago. He's an excellent coach. He gave me the opportunity as an apprentice to basically just learn whatever I wanted to learn.
Mm,
From there, through our like initial PGA training, the first thing we learned, because we're from Denmark, are the ball flight laws and the D plane, which completely blew my mind because I didn't know these things when I started coaching and I was a player. Um, Made me better immediately. The year I stopped playing professional golf was the first time I ever won two pro events in a year, just from having better knowledge. Um, from there, ended up going through the golfing machine. That was the first book I could find that actually had something instead of just
so
some random
it's a
person's
rough start.
preference. I loved it. I
It's kind of like
absolutely
reading
loved it.
Lord of the Rings as a nursery rhyme, kind
Yeah,
of.
I didn't get that much out of it in the beginning, but there was like the three imperatives, right? So there was lag, pressure, straight plane line, and hell, what was the last thing? Flat left wrist. And I
Hmm.
was like, you know what? I can teach that because none of the like beginners have that.
Hmm.
So I started with that. The guy that helped me read it was the only guy who was like a GSEB in Denmark, was a guy named Martin Park. Martin Park was a stack and tilt guy. He told me that Mike and Andy was coming to Denmark, and I had to go, so I went. Absolutely loved it. Spent, I don't know if I attended from there, like, I don't know, 12, 15 network trainings. On top of that, probably saw Andy coach live 15 to 20 days, full days just shadowing. On top of that, got access from other colleagues to like all these old seminars back when he was skinny. Um, I can say that with a smile on my face.
You're allowed to say that.
Yeah, exactly. So attended another, I don't know, watched probably another 30 of those fully recorded. Did book studies with Bob Dye, rest his soul, who's now dead. But we were like 10 guys who would do like a book study on the chapters. And if you didn't like put it in every Sunday, you get kicked out. It was me and actually a guy from Canada were the only two that completed the book study. Um, and then applied it for probably 6 to 7 years, completely like one to one. How would Andy do?
Hmm.
Um, and so he's been like without a doubt the biggest impact on me. Back when I then kind of felt like, you know what, I feel like, and I can't coach like Andy, but my impression was, you know what, I can give a golf lesson exactly like Andy Plummer, who I still to this day think is the guy who gives the best golf lessons I've ever seen.
Okay.
I was like, you know what, now I think I can start to make this a little bit my own.
Yeah.
So I would say that I still go through the exact same, like he learned, really taught me how to put these things into a system and where to look. um, then I could start to expand my knowledge base and visit other people and see how does that fit into what I already believe in systems, and can I add more ways of doing this that are less intrusive, instead of just like putting stuff in the way and go, this has to be there.
Yeah.
Um, Spend a ton of time, went to San Antonio to see Mike Romanowski from Mach 3. Spend a ton of time with John Sinclair. He's still like one of the guys that I feel like very honored that I can always text. Started talking to Sean Foley. I mean, hell, I'm missing a ton of people here. Scott
Yeah.
Fawcett from Decade, Hugh Ma, and again, like I consider all these guys now like mentors of mine, and I think really it's like I really like talking to people now who really does everything the opposite way of what I do, but get results.
Interesting.
Because I think at the end of it, I've spent a ton of money on educating myself over the years. I love it.
Hmm.
Going, is it next week? I'm doing one day with the Helix guys there in Denmark. So Chris Walke and I don't even
Mike,
know the other guys' names,
is Mike
but
coming over?
Chris is. Yeah,
Mike
but
K?
Chris is a good friend of mine, so
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing him. And I'm going to see the other guys and see what they're doing, right? Um, and I used to just go to stuff when I thought it was interesting. And the guys who would use the most expensive words were the guys I would go see. And when I felt like I did 3 seminars in a row, well, I was like, this was BS, and I wasted money here. And now I just go see guys who has a record of getting people better at shooting lower scores. And if somebody's doing that, I want to see what they're doing and I want to learn it. That doesn't mean that I completely change what I'm doing, but I just like to go, oh, okay, that frees me up. But I think it's been like, for me, I think that's been really, really good and eye opening. And it's been comforting to go, you know what, there's not one way of doing this. There's multiple ways of doing it. And there's multiple ways to get people good at golf. And I find that really comforting.
Yeah, I think there's a lot in there if coaches are listening to what you just said, and you pretty much, as we go and we learn from the actual ingredients, the information we're getting, but we also learn how to maybe do it better or what we mightn't have done. I think there's a ton in what you just said, and it would take us another 2 hours just to go through and break that all down. I think the things that I really relate to are the starting off with a good influence, but knowing that not everyone you see, you need to repeat what they do. Take what you need from it, adapt it, learn from it, know that there's many different ways to do things. Don't restrict yourself by just going to see people you like. Actually go and say, okay, well, that person's getting, why are they getting results? I don't necessarily agree, but yeah, as you said, and one of the big things for me was stopping going to seminars and starting going to see the people themselves. So like we talked about, visiting John, right? I was like, well, I could go to a seminar, listen to him present, which would be good information, or I can go to the person, spend more money, more cash, invest, and ask my own questions. And I think that started making a big difference for me.
Yeah, I agree. And I think as long as it is the information you're seeking out is driven by the problems you see on the lesson tee, or they are done to help out, like you're trying to find your blind spots and you're trying to like have less and less of those. I think as long as it is performance driven, what you're seeking out, then I think it's good information.
Yeah, yeah. I think that would depend. I think in terms of what you're trying to do, because there's definitely been times over the last 2 years where I've, more focused on 3D, have my own system. There's times or weeks where I'll just want to learn just
Yeah,
what should we see. And I know that's a very
yeah,
poor way of phrasing it, but you know what? So it's not really, I'm not applying it to anybody, player A, player B, tour pro A, B. I'm just going, I just want to, what does the average do and learn about the swing and mode? Okay, that's cool. And then kind of go from there. But I get what you're saying. I think it's a really good place to go from where, and I take this a lot the last couple of years, instead of looking generically for information, look at your players and what their issues are and find solvent there and use that as your kind of platform. So I think there's many,
yeah,
many ways to look at this depending on what your goal is
yeah.
as a coach, right?
Or at least be conscious that when you're doing it for yourself,
Mm,
you don't go straight out and then start applying it.
that's very well said. Yeah. Yeah.
Because yeah, for sure, I do go down rabbit holes for me. I still feel like I end up going through those rabbit holes because something came up. So I went
Yes.
down the breathing route as well, right? I loved it. I still love it. I think it's important to me and my health, but it came from a spot of before that going through a ton of mindfulness for the players that I coach.
Hmm.
Because I felt like that was something that quite a few of them needed to be, let's not say mentally stronger, but at least more mentally resilient.
Hmm.
And as soon as they started getting really, really conscious about where they're at, what they're feeling, what they're thinking, they also needed some ways to release whatever anxiety or something they had. And all of a sudden, breathing actually made sense because that could be a really, really good actionable way of of actually getting better.
Yeah.
Right? So like, but to be honest, like I don't know, I researched it a ton, still work on it myself. I ended up curing my allergies. Ended up feeling a ton better. I'm pretty sure none of my guys went into it as deep as I did, but I mean, it still came from a place of actually, I wasn't interested in breathing. I was interested in getting my boys better.
Yeah, I like that. And I think, when I started trying to improve, it was a very generic, oh, I'm going to go here, go here, go here, go here. And I think as you get more clients as a younger coach, you should use them as your springboard, as we said, right? As you said, the young lads saw them maybe, hey, can we like improve how you deal with certain anxiety situations? Hey, breathing might be a good way. I'll go explore it first. Like I'll go into the woods first and see what's going on, and then I'll
Yeah, yeah,
report back. And I think that could
yeah,
be a very fulfilling experience because at the end you're learning, but you're also
yeah,
helping your players, which hey, win-win. Everybody gets better,
yeah.
right?
I think
Um,
so.
when you're looking at a player, and we know really a good perspective is the best players just are the best adapters in golf swing. We're all adapting to a certain extent. How do you really differentiate between a compensation that's helping performance? So, we all have these different type moves, and one that's limiting it long term. So, it nearly, I could rephrase that perhaps in going, when we look at certain idiosyncratic movements, are they the strength in the player, or are they the weakness in the chain?
Yeah. Well, I think usually you're going to go like if he's hitting it good and he's doing something strange, it's probably helping him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would say so. Like, know that if you're just trying to remove that, then he's likely hitting it worse.
Yeah.
So there's something else you probably also need to do. Now, why should you change something? Should you change something just because you don't like the look or because Instagram told you that that's not where the shaft should be at P5? That's probably a pretty poor reason for changing something.
Probably the worst
Uh,
reason.
yeah, probably right. Like I think there should be really, honestly, like really like stripped down. There should only be three reasons for why we ever suggest anything as coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Either it's to make the ball go closer to where we want it to go, or where we intended to go, whether that is further or straighter or more consistently hitting a number, or it's chipping it closer to whatever the flag, or it's putting it
Mm-hmm.
closer to whatever. That would be a really reasonable reason for why saying something to a student. I would say that number two should probably be injury prevention.
Yeah.
So I mean, I see it a lot. I don't know if they do the same in Canada, but I see a ton of really strong trail hands and a ton of side bend to make the club not go left. And sometimes, I mean, we don't know, right? We could be dealing with the next Joaquin Neiman.
Yes.
Um,
Very true.
but we still have to use our experience and go, you know what? I think you're at end range, and I don't think long term that that's a great idea.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be the adult and I'm going to try to convince you, maybe even and your parents, that even though you're doing really good right now, down the road, this is not going to be good, right? So we're probably going to have to change the right hand, but we'll probably also have to try to keep the right side a little higher
Yeah.
because I think long term that you're going to get hurt. Like nobody's really good at end range. It's usually not a
Yeah.
great idea. And then I think the third reason why you would ever suggest anything is because you think that this will increase the love for the game.
Interesting.
So if it's not touching one of those three things, it's probably BS, or you're probably just filling air with words.
Yeah. And so that's where it goes back to having the data, right? So if you do make that change,
Yeah,
whatever the case may be, obviously you got to give a grace period to the player and the coach.
yeah,
I generally, and I don't know about you, I generally in lessons when I kind of go for a drill or go after something that I believe to be the case, because the best golf coaches are really good educated guessers who get better with time, right? We don't know anything
yeah.
for sure, right?
Nope.
So when we kind of try one of those things, those drills, I generally give my kind of playing players, tour players, maybe 4 or 5 golf balls, and I give the club golfer about 10 or 12 before I get, you can kind of see it,
Yeah,
the body
we need to
language
see
and the
something.
reaction. Yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah.
need to see something, right? You need to see something in the contact distance, direction, whatever, where you're going
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, all right, we're on the right track, right? And I think that's the again, I don't know, when I see a problem, I feel like I have 15 different ways of solving that same problem.
Mm-hmm.
So which one do I go with first? Well, I go with the one that's usually the most successful. And then that didn't work. That doesn't mean that
Yeah.
we're on the wrong track here. We just didn't find the right way of doing it yet.
Within your players, do you have, very much like, different players who react differently to different stimuli? So perhaps
Yeah.
that player who you put in alignment stick in the backswing, and then there's
Yeah.
the next player, player B, who hates things being around them, would prefer you more give them a cue of, okay, well, there's a wall behind you, don't hit the wall.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. No, there's a ton of ways.
Yeah.
I mean, and then there's player preferences, right? Like there's some of the guys that just want to walk in as soon as they see one ball end up left of the target line, right? And then you have the exact opposite. You got guys that just want to walk in as soon as they see a ball cut an inch to the right. So you got to, like, you can't just tell them that this is a superior shot.
Hmm.
Like they decide how they grow up, they decide how they see golf, they decide that, like, I don't know, the guys that don't want to see a ball go left, they usually tee it up over on the left side of the tee box, right? And they push it out to the right, and they probably play with a more open club face, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, it takes a little while sometimes to understand, right? And you got to cue in on like, okay, how are we doing this? And I mean, some of them you just got to explain to them how the entire machine works, and then they go, oh, okay, I get it, and then they just do it. And then
Yeah.
you've got some who are like, dude, I don't need to know anything. I don't want to watch video. I don't care. Just tell me what to do. I'll do it.
Yeah.
I don't even care how it feels.
Hmm.
All right, okay, you need to point the face at your left foot at setup. Okay, does that make the ball go straight? Yep. All right, then they'll do it.
Yeah. I had the good fortune to before Butch closed his golf school in Vegas. I had the good fortune to go out there and spend 4 or 5 days with him.
Oh,
And the very first day, so his rule is basically right. You can stand in the bay,
yeah.
and you stand right beside him. You can look at everything that's going on. You just don't say anything while the player is there, and then when the player leaves, you can ask your questions. Fair enough, no problems
Awesome.
whatsoever. So first guy comes in, about 20 handicap, gets up to the top, trail wrist in mass flexion, club face is open as a 24/7, throws it over the top, big cut slice 6 iron, maybe goes about 110. Does the same thing again. And I'm like, okay. And in my head, I'm not saying anything, but in my head, I'm like, okay, well, trail wrist inflection, want to get more extension, might have to look at that elbow, then get more lapella. Butch comes over and he puts his hand, the guy is like facing towards the wall, and Butch comes over beside him, puts his hand in his right pocket. And he says, see that right pocket there, buddy? He goes, yeah. Can you get and turn that pocket behind your right shoe in this next backswing? He goes, yeah, sure. Turns it, flush. 150 down the middle. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. I'm like, oh my God, totally, totally different, right? Because he's seen it so many times. He's seen it
Yeah.
like more times than I'll ever see it. And he knows 98% of the time when I've seen this, this has worked. And he has that,
Yes.
that experience to kind of back it up, which is fantastic. Um, can you walk us through like a real example where you kind of, I think this has happened to all coaches really, where you walked in, see a player move a certain pattern, you see what the ball flight does, you go, okay, we want to change that. And the fault looks obvious, right? It looks like it's staring you right in the face and you go, okay. And you fix it. And on video, it looks great. You've solved that issue. And I know that's an aesthetic feedback, but let's say you solve it and you go, okay, that looks great, but the player gets worse. And
Yeah.
I'm not just talking maybe just because there's a coach section. I'm not talking in session. I mean like over a week, let's say, or maybe even longer. And you're like, head scratcher. Can you talk us through a situation that might have happened before, or has that happened to you before?
Oh, it's happened plenty of times.
Okay.
I would say two of the ones that come to mind are either when it happens is that I've not been good enough at explaining to them what they need to use the fix for.
Okay.
So there's no ball flight intention to the thing,
Hmm.
like to the fix. So I haven't been good enough educator at actually telling them,
So,
okay, the reason why this is going on is because of this, and then they just did it without actually like they didn't ask, I didn't care to explain.
so you didn't make a connection between, hey,
No,
this is,
they
yeah,
didn't.
okay.
They didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then I would say that there's a ton because it's a human being, right? There's a ton of people. Well, there's not a ton, but there's quite a few people where like the cause and effect, like you go with, okay, I assume this guy is hitting it to the right because his left wrist is an extension or because he
Hmm.
pulls down on the club, right? And then you see, then you go through the 3D graphs and you see how a left wrist is supposed to move through space. And you go, oh, it goes from a little bit of extension at the top towards flexion from 4 to 5.
Hmm.
Okay. And then you start working on that. And the guy starts flexing his left wrist, and you're thinking that should close the face and get rid of that weak cut to the right. And as it turns out, he hits it more and more right the more you close the face. Because either you're missing the other face closer, which is like, I mean, flexion extension, it does close the face, but it doesn't close it enough. You need forearm rotation as well.
Yeah.
Or it might be a matter of as soon as they feel that face be closed, they might raise the handle a crazy amount and still hit it right.
Yeah.
Whereas the more you actually open it, the more they square it up,
Yeah.
right? So there's like, because it's a human being, the way they feel that face in 3D space can be very, very, it's not as simple as like, yes, you can make the assumption, and you would probably, if you had 100 people having the wrist go from extension to flexion, you know what? You would probably get most of the people, their face to path would probably close more.
Yeah.
But there's also going to be the people that hit it more to the right. And
Yeah.
it actually is open more at impact, right? What was his name? The guy from Georgia who like won two in a row and to never be seen again. Like one, like now he's back in. Like I don't think he's playing that well anymore. Uh, Really good at short game. It's a couple of years ago. He won like back-to-back PGA Tour events, like in crazy good short game. I forgot his name.
Okay.
But I remember his entire story was to try to get rid of the block. It was like trying to get the lead wrist to do this, and he started blocking it more and more and more, right? And it's, I mean, again, he's a PGA Tour golfer. Like, he's pretty world class. Like, he's got some sensory stuff and some feels and a proprioception. It's probably pretty good. And now you're turning that face like it probably needed to close 2 degrees to the path, and we just probably twisted it 45 degrees closed.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to just swing at it, right?
It's a big change. I think,
45 degrees face angle change is
yeah,
pretty big.
I think there was, I saw this a week ago, and I think I could be wrong in the names. I think it was Matt Wallace talking about Matt Belsham. I think I
Yeah,
could be wrong. And Matt was struggling, I think he was cutting it
yeah,
and he was trying to do that. And then
yeah,
Matt came along, you know what, get it more open. And he got
yeah,
it more open at the top. And for whatever reason, he closed it like anything
yeah,
on the way down and actually hit this pull fade. It's totally
yeah,
contradictory, right? And I think
yeah,
that's the fun part about this in terms of you're enjoying the process. It's that challenge, right? Because I think we've all had it, especially in session, where we've done the right, what we believe to be the right thing, and it has a negative effect, and then you're kind of stuck on an island a little bit. And I think that's when your real, let's say, your confidence or belief in yourself as a coach comes to the fore, where you know what, that might not have been the best thing. Let's go back. Let's try it another way. And
yeah,
just be
and
calm in those situations.
yeah. And I think it's really good for us as coaches that we check ourselves
Yeah.
and then we actually like. I think if you're a really good coach, I don't. I mean, it sucks, but I don't think you have that many great days at work.
Mhm.
Like you have a lot of days where you drive home from work and go, wish I could have done that better. Wish I could have done that better. Wish I could have done that better.
Yeah.
Um, which is honestly kind of a miserable thing, but it actually, I think it makes you better
Yeah.
because it doesn't become the other way around where it just becomes all these, sorry, goddamn excuses of, oh, that student's just impossible. And, he's just a horrendous lesson to give. And like basically trying to put responsibility on something else. No, when the club does this, the ball does this. Well, it fucking didn't. All right.
You did that and it didn't. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, and I
Yeah.
think us as
100%.
coaches need to be aware that, you know what, most of the time this usually works, but it didn't work in this case. So what am I missing? Instead of, oh, but that's just a bad student.
Yeah.
Or you can't teach anybody or everybody. You should be able to teach everybody.
Absolutely. There's always a way. And
Yeah.
if your skill set is large enough, and we get better as time and like interactions and all these learning processes. But if your skill set is large enough and adaptable enough, you should be able to help anybody, no matter what their issue is. And you should have four, five,
Yeah.
six, seven, eight, nine, 10 different ways of saying the same thing and getting the same result. And I
Yeah.
have,
And communicate it differently and
yeah,
have empathy for people that are different. And
yeah,
like, there's certainly some students that I enjoy coaching more than others because it's more natural to me, but that
hmm
shouldn't be like, okay, that's the only, I'm not for everybody, right? I should be able
yeah.
to adapt to the student in front of me.
Yeah, I have a little book at home by my nightstand. And so just before I go to bed each night, I'll actually just write the name of the client. And then I have good and improve. And so the good
Yeah.
is just what did I do good in that lesson I felt was good? And then what areas can I improve if I had that lesson to do over again? And it only takes, like, you're talking one sentence on each lesson
You're
or
a
two
lot
sentences for
nicer.
each lesson.
You're a lot nicer to yourself than I am.
Well, I used to be the other way. And
Yeah.
I found it was getting like a little bit too severe where I was highly critical.
Yeah.
Like I beat myself
Yeah.
up to death over it. And I talking with Sean and talking to other people and stuff, and then sports therapists that were working with a few players, and I started understanding that, if you're the CEO of yourself, perhaps you're talking to yourself like that all the time. It can be motivational, and I've always said this. Taking into example, uh, Patrick Reed, when he was working, we did a Ledbetter thing at some stage, and they talked about Patrick Reed and working with Patrick, and they said when Patrick first started working with the Ledbetter group, they were told, don't ever tell him well done, right? He doesn't need to be told well done because at the start, when he was leaving home at 18, 19, his dad told him you'd never amount to fucking anything and he was a joke. And he uses that as a driver. So he's very
Yeah.
much like, rightly or wrongly, it doesn't. So
Yeah.
I think everybody's a little different in what motivates them. But yeah, I was the other way for a while, and I found, you know what? Let's just be kinder to yourselves as well as others. It might help
Yeah.
you more in the long term.
I think what I'm good at is I'm beating myself up in the car on the way home, and then when I'm home, I'm home.
There you go. Yeah. And you get to your wife and you go in the door and you nice smile and
I'm
happiness.
I'm done.
Everything's good with the world.
I'm done.
Um, we mentioned at the very start you've had a lot of success with developing players, right? And we kind of said off camera here is the goal really is not to teach tour pros, but by fault, by being as good as you are at what you do, you've developed these players into tour players. So you now have a couple of guys on DP World Tour, and a couple of players are making some appearances on PJ Tour too. What are some of the
He's got,
principles?
just a correction, he's got a full
Sorry,
PGA Tour card.
sorry, I wasn't too sure. Yeah, so full PGA Tour
No.
card, even better.
Yeah.
So you've had a lot of success with developing those junior players all the way through to there. What are some of the principles you apply when working with juniors? Because I'm sure there's juniors now that come to you, seeing the great job you've done, having the same goals, the same ambitions. What are some of those principles you put in at an early date? And they don't necessarily have to be technical. They could be in career guidance, personal development, any of those things.
Mm, question. I think we have our number one thing at our academy is that we want the kids to play golf for the rest of their lives.
Okay.
Um, I think we'll call it like that every time they come, it should be fun, but it's probably not a great word. It should be meaningful.
Okay. I like meaningful.
Um, yeah, and that probably depends on skill level, ambition, how serious they take their game, et cetera, right? However, and we talk a lot about that there's players that play golf and then there's golfers. Um, and I don't know, I could run through an entire list of what I define as a person that plays golf and a golfer, but I
Hmm.
think people already know what I mean. But I think the most important thing is that the kids come to our place. The very most important thing is that if we think that they are a kid that plays golf, we need to turn them into a golfer.
Okay.
Because as soon as they're turned into golfers, they become like it's the first thing they think about when they get up in the morning. It's the last thing they think about when they go to bed at night. They ask way more context related questions. They don't sigh when you come with a suggestion, right? Like they don't, like they're like a dog wagging their tail, going like, to coach, tell me what to do, I'll do it.
Yeah.
So I would say we spent quite a bit of time doing that, depending on, like, they're divided into different groups. But if they're divided into a group where we think that they are kids that play golf, we try to get them to love it.
Hmm.
And as soon as they love it, then I think like a they're like clay, and we can shape them, and we can do pretty much everything. We can make fairly high demands. We can
Yeah.
make practice extremely difficult, and they'll still enjoy it. Whereas a kid that plays golf, he just doesn't want to show up and get his ass kicked every time. That's not why he
Yeah.
came. He
Yeah.
came to hang out. They still come to hang out, the other ones as well. But his primary reason was probably to hang out, or because his parents told him to, or, you know, he just thinks it's kind of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So
I like that. Yeah.
I would say that those are the primary things we do. I would also say that we don't decide how good they get. They decide how good they want to be and what they're willing to sacrifice. Because if you want to get really good, you will have to sacrifice quite a fair bit.
Hmm.
It's not a, it's not a your normal youth. Like, you've
Yeah.
got school and golf, pretty much,
That's pretty much it.
and your relationships you build, and your friendships, they come with from the people that you practice with.
Mm. That becomes your community, so to speak.
Yes, oh, for sure. And I
Yeah.
I actually spoke to the owner of our academy the other day, where, like, the name of our academy is Danish Junior Golf Academy,
Yeah.
and I And now it's like it's branded well and it's known and all these things. I was like, dude, I wish we could change the name so it's just called Danish Junior Golf Community, because I think that's really what it is. It's a nonprofit. It's not a good business. It's not a moneymaker. It's none of that. It's a great community where kids come in, they support each other, they know what the rules and the demands are, that they're respectful towards each other, they're disciplined, and they are proactive. And we see how good they get.
Nice. You were a college golfer yourself at North Texas. Do you
Yeah.
feel that the college experience has changed substantially from when you were there, or can you still kind of rely on your own experiences when you were there to help those kids that you're dealing with now?
I think I can relate and I think I can help. I would
Hmm.
say of the boys I coach who was successful, I currently coach one PGA Tour player, two DP World Tour players, and three guys on the Hotel Planner Tour.
Hmm.
Three of them have gone to college in the States, three of them didn't. So there's no like, well, I'm going, this is an advantage. I would, I went 2 years to McLennan Community College first, where I had the two best years of my life. And then I went to North Texas, where I would say I had the two worst years of my life. Looking back on it, I feel like I'm very fortunate to know how good of an experience college can be and also how horrible an experience college can be.
Hmm.
I still suggest that the boys and girls go because I don't think we're in a hurry. And I think if they can get a degree and they can get to see the world and they can grow up in a fairly safe environment through college, I think it's great. But of
Yeah.
course, if they don't want to go, they shouldn't go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I love that over idea about making a community. And there's a good coach over here called Doug Laurie. He does a lot of juniors, and when you see those posts when he has his players in, you get the sense of that it's a community. They're enjoying themselves. They want to be there. They love
Yes.
to be there, and it's such an important aspect. Okay, so let's go through a few swings if you've still got time. If we're still okay, don't want to keep you
I've
away
got
from
like
you.
5 to 10 minutes.
Okay, plenty. All right,
All right.
Rasmus.
Yep.
All right, this is really really good. We love this. What's the big thing that you guys work on over the last couple of seasons, or is there something new that you've been working on lately? And what's his main thing in terms of ball flight? What's he trying to stay away from, and what's he trying to get to?
Good question. This shot right here, or these swings right here,
Yeah.
are what we would call window 5.5.
Okay.
Um, it's a very shallow shot or angle of attack that
Okay.
probably curves like a yard or two to the left.
Mm-hmm.
He's got some pretty precise numbers on his TrackMan or his quad. Now he's got both because he's a big deal.
Okay.
Uh, that tells him where he is at. What's very interesting with Rasmus is that that's probably the only shot he never hits on the course.
Okay.
So he likes to shape the ball a lot,
And does he
and
like to
he's
shape it both ways, or does he have a
both
preference?
ways. He's
Okay.
completely fearless. I would say that his go-to is likely more of a cut, but
Okay.
he doesn't mind hitting like a really high draw to a short left pin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, but the thing is that his tendency is always to get fairly steep and left.
Okay.
Like this little squeezy window one ish is his like the shot that he hits probably the most.
Okay.
I'd say like I don't know, window one. Call it just the knockdown fade, right?
Yeah.
Um, so this is like his baseline swing, which is pretty
Mm-hmm.
much all we practice.
Okay.
And we don't practice it that much. It shouldn't take that long.
And so when you're talking about windows, you're talking if we kind of drew something out there that he's trying to get the ball to start off. Is that what you're referencing?
Exactly, right? So you
Yeah.
got all the
Yeah.
right windows. You got like
Yeah.
from the bottom to the top, you got low, medium, and high push draws. And on the left side, you got low, medium, and high pull fades,
Yeah.
or low, medium, and high fades at least. And then you got
Mm-hmm.
low, medium, and straight, right?
Yeah.
He likes to see shapes, but he said what he says is if I can hit that shot, then I don't have to move around a whole lot to hit all the other ones.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. That's
So it's
that.
almost
Yeah.
like like people that are like who doesn't like straight putts
Mm-hmm.
because they don't feel like they can kind of lean it up against something. He's kind of the same way with his irons.
Okay. Right.
So this is the swing. This is cool down after the second round at last week's Dubai Desert Classic.
Okay.
So that's pretty much the most recent that I sent you. I thought
Okay.
this was pretty.
Yeah, and so what's is it just when you're talking about that kind of, is it enough right now? You've done enough work to kind of say to him, all right, give me that 5.5 versus the one, and can he adapt, or is he, when he is asked to hit that one shot, to get a little bit shallower, a little less steep, is he attaching a technical movement or pattern or segment change into that too? So is he
Yeah,
feeling okay, more side
he's got
bend or
he's got some feels.
okay?
He'll usually so he's got a thing. We did this a long time ago when he was at Oklahoma State. We
Hmm.
put the three wood head cover on top of his head,
Yeah.
and he just had to make sure that it doesn't fall off until after impact. If people go on his Instagram, they'll see it. But there's a
Okay.
tendency to add maybe a little bit too much forward bend.
Okay.
Um, so
In
all of a sudden
transition.
yeah, so he gets a
Okay.
little bit too far below ground.
Yeah.
We can go through that in different ways. He should lower.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, for sure.
but at times it becomes too low.
Yeah.
We hit out of the fairway bunker quite a fair bit at home.
Nice.
Um, he's got like some different feels with like where it's actually he says he feels like there's an alignment rod
Hmm.
somewhere. Like he always says, like it's up against the right side of my head on the backswing, and it's up against the left side of my head. But it's not like internal to like his body has to feel a certain way.
Yeah, yeah. So
But
it's
I would
more
say
kind of external
yeah,
cues to get him there.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say that yeah. Then we've got a couple of setup things. Like on this one, I like it. But
Hmm.
if anything, at times he tends to side bend a little bit too far right from the face on view at setup, which
Okay.
makes
Right.
his right hand too strong, which all of a sudden, like he can't hit his fates as much as he wants. But I would say that it usually becomes the baseline, and then it becomes a matter of him asking really good context related questions where he goes, dude, window one is not coming back.
Okay.
And he's always got, which I really think is admirable. And I think a lot of competitive players should learn from this, is that he wants to be in full control of his game.
Hmm.
And my
Yeah.
goal is the same, is for him to know his game the best. I can't coach him when he plays anyways. Um, so it's always very context related. He finished, what did he finish? Did he finish third, I think, at the finals last year? Yeah, he
Hmm.
just missed out by one shot on that
Yeah.
playoff with Fitzy and Rory, right?
Yeah.
And he came straight from Yas Links, where he was like second in strokes gained tee to green. And he comes up, he goes like, "Can we hit a couple balls?" Yep. I look at the baseline swing; it's beautiful. He's hitting everything he should. The swing looks great. And he goes, "I've got one question. I can't hit window one at the moment. It stays out left."
Okay.
Okay. I go, "Why do you think it's happening?" He goes, "All right, so let's go through the procedure. I aim my stance line left. I think I'm double dipping, putting the ball position back and moving my upper body forward to get it
Okay.
low enough. And I think the angle of attack gets so down that it actually pushes my path too far to the right of the face, so it stays left." I go, "That sounds reasonable. Let's like
Yeah.
that actually sounds really reasonable.
Yeah.
Um, what do you think I should do?" I go, "Well, through our last 12 years, you always like to kind of like lean into the low balls.
Yeah.
So I think you put your stance line left. I think you leave your ball position, and then I think you can lean into it." I go, "The
Yeah.
other option is that you put the ball back and you don't lean into it." He goes, "Yeah, can't do that. That's going to
Yeah.
feel like I'm standing on my right leg the entire swing." I go, "Yep." Hits three, four balls with his 9 iron. They start left, they cut, they have the right trajectory, and he goes, "You know what? I'm good.
Yeah.
I don't need any more."
Yeah. Nice, nice and simple. But because of what you guys have
But
worked, because the knowledge
yeah,
sharing the information. Yeah.
yeah, but it's
Yeah.
always context related.
Yeah.
He'll never ever in his entire life make a swing, look back at me, and go, "What do you think?"
Yeah.
Right? I go, like,
Which
I
is
think a ton of things.
yeah. Like, I think a lot of things. That's really
Yeah,
interesting because it's always, I think, sometimes in a little bit, we kind of expect that it's something very, secretive and in like, detailed and why these guys are. And it's always nice to just get a little behind the scenes look between a coach and an elite player and go, well, you know what? It's relatively simple, but we've put in the hard work to get to there. But we've done that to make it relatively simple. Now we can work off feels. So I know you're short from time. So I just wanted to show this really, really quickly. And this is basically
oh,
the website. So andreaskalligolf.com. And the reason why I want to show this is number one, there's some stuff on here for club golfers too. So there's a free guide, 5 fundamentals to better ball striking, jump on the website. I'll put the details of the website in the actual pod, so we don't need to
Awesome.
remember that.
Thanks.
But if you just throw up your first name, last name, email, you actually get that document for free, which is great. I recommend it. Little info on you. And then right down the bottom, because we're in the coaches section, these are absolutely fantastic. So these things I can't recommend enough. Now, just talking about you in the third person while you're here. I did, to the audience, I did a video thing, a course about 2 years ago with Humar and Andreas. And I can't tell you how good it was and how well you speak when you're talking about the golf swing. And because you went more down the sack and tilt stuff, which I wasn't familiar with that time, and I understood everything really, really well. So I think that's really a compliment to you in taking something that perhaps could be challenging in the first place, but really turning into a very easy learning experience and very knowledgeable and everything explained to reasons why it works. So I think these in here, the full coaching philosophy for like €500, shit, like that's nothing compared to the amount of money you'd spend on other stuff, right? So how much you were saying you spent and how much I've spent, like it pales in comparison. So you get 8 hours of coaching for that. That is basically 3 or 4 lessons, and you get 8 hours. I highly recommend it. And the chipping golf lesson here, the short game toolbox as well. You can't go wrong. These are two fantastic purchases in my mind. If you're a golf coach,
Try and go up a little bit
yeah,
and go to press the shop up all the way in the top. Sorry.
okay, shop, yeah,
Just press the shop again.
okay,
So just if I can add a little bit of context, right?
yeah, for sure, yeah,
So
100%.
so my deal is right now, and we end up as coaches going like, why am I doing this, and what do I actually want to accomplish with this?
Mm-hmm.
I want to do a couple of things. I'm extremely busy at the moment,
Okay,
which means that we as coaches, what do we do when we're busy? We raise our rates, right?
yeah,
To slow things down, whatever. But there's still like only a certain amount of hours in the day, and I want to spend time with my family as well, and I want to do what's best for my students. So I've had a ton of people reach out to me, club golfers and coaches, who's like, "Hey, can you come to this place and do a seminar?"
mm-hmm.
I'd love to. It's one of the things I love the most is actually like trying to get other coaches better.
Yeah,
However, when there's only like 4 people in Spain who wants to attend, I've found out that I fully recorded a 12-hour seminar. I'm like, you know what, you can do this instead.
yeah,
This is pretty much what I'm going to present. You can get it. You can see it as much as you want. On top of that, for golfers, when they write me on Instagram or something, they go, "Can you look at my swing?" Go, "What's your problem?" Like honestly, when I'm fixing slices or I'm fixing hooks or I'm fixing contact, I would say in general, it's quite generic.
mm-hmm.
And these videos, if you go down, there's quite a few actually that will save people a ton of money. I know they're not gonna
Yeah. There's one on
like,
the draw there. Yeah,
yeah, harness the draw, you go
stopping the
back.
slice.
Yeah, exactly right. So
Awesome.
so it's basically done so I can help out more people. I understand that they're not getting the help directly from me, but on the other hand, it is at a much cheaper rate.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so it's my way of trying to help out.
Yeah, I know. I
Um,
think I think it's fantastic. I personally, I don't think it needs a reasoning. I think it's helping everybody, right? In terms of that, I know you want to because you want to kind of okay. Well, hey, I'm not going to be there, but I can tell you, I've done a lot of education since I started trying to learn, and as we talked about before, some good, some not so good. Um, this is some really good stuff, and I wouldn't say that right on this podcast. I wouldn't say it to any other coaches. I get a lot of younger coaches ask me, "Okay, well, you've been to
yeah,
see this guy, this guy, this guy. Who was the best? What's the best?" I'm like, "You're doing a great job." We talked about this a little bit before the pod began. You're very unassuming. You're doing your thing, shutting out the noise from outside, and you're doing what you said you wanted to go see guys who
yeah,
make players better. And that's you,
yeah.
right? So
I've
I
got
think anytime
I've
you have a
got
coach,
two. Sorry, you go ahead.
yeah, every time you have a coach like that, why wouldn't you want to learn from them? And in this case, okay, well, we might see you at an education stop somewhere down the road, but until then, this would be fantastic and a lot cheaper than the plane flight and the ticket would cost to go see the seminar. So,
Yeah, yeah. I've got two reasons for being in golf coaching. Like
mhm.
seriously, is what it all boils down to. I wanted the guys I coach. I want to give them the very, very. I want them to feel like they're giving their golf dreams the very best chance that they can possibly give it.
Hmm.
right? Like that's number one. Doesn't matter if they make it or not. I want them to, when they if they put the clubs down, I want them to be able to look in the mirror and go, you know what, that's the best I had, and then we can at least rest knowing that that wasn't good enough, or maybe that was top 10 in the world, maybe it was number one in the world,
Yeah.
whatever. And number two, I want to leave golf coaching in a better spot than it was at when I started coaching. So it's basically my compass for saying yes and no to things. If I can, that's why I said yes to this.
Yeah.
I feel like it gives me just a little small opportunity to maybe put golf coaching in a better spot. And if then I say yes. And then I
Yeah.
say no to a ton of things if I don't think that it applies to one of the two things I said.
Well, we definitely, I know I really appreciate you coming on because I just like, as you said, start talking golf, right? With great coaches. But I know, the people that listen to the podcast are kind of very informative. They like their golf, they're dedicated to their golf. And I know they're going to get a lot out of this. And even if it just
Yeah.
piques their interest enough to go on, and this isn't a sell job, we're not trying to sell anything here, but even if it piques their interest enough to go on, buy one of the programs, watch it, you will get better. Your knowledge will get better. It'll improve your game versus randomly going through Instagram,
Yeah.
YouTube, you know?
As long as you're not hooking the ball and you purchase stopping the slice, or the other way around, that you're a slicer and you purchase harness the draw, because then you're
Yeah.
actually going to get worse. Like,
Okay.
get the one that applies to your bull flight issue,
Yeah.
please. Or if you're
We need
seriously,
to put that as an asterisk on the purchasing.
yeah, yeah, and the other way around. Like, and if you're a coach and you struggle as a coach with, like, you see, I would, like most coaches, they see people who slice it.
Hmm.
Maybe just like give it a look, dude. It's 80 euros. There's gonna be tools that you can add to your toolbox in how I would fix it. And you can go, yeah, it's a little different, but when I get in trouble and I can't fix it, then maybe I'm gonna add that little one thing or two things that Andreas said, right?
Yeah, I think it's a very dangerous stance to take in the world that you can't learn something off everybody. That might
No.
be good, it might be bad, but you're always going to learn something off everybody, I think, in terms of doing this stuff. So, yeah, I know there's probably people who listen to this and go, oh, we didn't really get into the nitty gritty of stack and tilt and more. Hey, maybe we'll get you back on sometime. We'll get a little bit more technical from that perspective. But I know you're very busy, so I didn't want to take up too much of your time. So,
Let's do a part two some other time, Steve. I
okay,
enjoyed this.
person. All right, great, mate. Thank you very much for your time. Have a lovely evening. Hopefully, it warms up a
Thank
little
you.
bit tomorrow, warmer than here in Toronto. So, thanks, mate.
It won't. Thanks, man.
Cheers.
Bye.